Look, I'm not an alcoholic. I could abstain from drinking for 30 days. To put it simply, dry January just doesn't work. Dry January is a deceptive tactic to fool us into thinking that we're tackling the problem when really we're just scratching the surface of a deeper underlying problem. The harsh truth is, we're considering dry January. We probably have a more serious problem with alcohol, drugs, substances, addiction than we realize. And if we're using dry January as a means to placate our guilty conscience or the part of us that knows that our drinking is problematic, well, we're just placating ourselves so that we can drink and party the rest of the year and think that we've done something by getting sober for 1 month out of the year. 30 days is not a long time. So first reason why dry January is deceptive and it doesn't work is because a month is not long enough to enact serious, significant, long-term life changes. When we're drinking, if we have a tendency to drink on the weekends or to drink several times throughout the week, binge drink, it's symptomatic of an underlying issue with alcohol. And getting sober for 30 days isn't enough to cure that problem. 30 days doesn't get rid of the underlying tendency to drink. And I know this because I tried dry January for 6 years. I tried to get sober, and for 6 of those years, I was fooling myself through dry January. I like delving into dry January because it made me feel like I was doing something about my drinking, that I had a handle on my drinking, when really I didn't. I would get sober in January, and by the time the last weekend of January rolled around, I would be looking to celebrate, and I would go out and I would end up drinking and getting either blacked out drunk, sick, doing something I would regret the next day. And to get rid of that feeling, I would continue to drink. Or the weekend after, the next weekend in February, I would drink that weekend to make up for the shitty weekend I had getting drunk at the end of January, because I was celebrating my sobriety, because I had made it, because I got a month sober. Therefore, I deserve to go and binge drink. Dry January deceives us into thinking that we can get sober on our own, that we can handle the alcohol abuse disorder by ourselves, that we don't need outside help. And that's the folly of every alcoholic, of every addict, of every prideful person. And this is what makes or breaks a person's success in sobriety, is whether or not they can put down and lower their ego, put down their pride and lower their ego enough to admit that they're powerless and that they need help. I wasn't able to help myself. Once I made that decision, once I acknowledged that, coming to that realization that I couldn't help myself, that's when the true transformation began with me. Dry January deceives us into thinking that we're getting a handle on our drinking. 1 month of the year doesn't count for much when we're partying every other month of the year. For me, my issue was I would binge drink. I didn't drink every day, but when I did drink, I drank to an excess, and it would usually be 1 or 2 nights a week. I would have a lot of drinks, and sometimes I would have more than drinks. Eventually it got to a point where I was drinking and doing drugs, and then doing drugs to counteract the drinking, and then doing the drinking to counteract the drugs. And that just spiraled out of control to the point where I became crippled by my addiction, and I wasn't functioning in society. I was destroying myself. I was slowly killing myself. Speaking from experience here, approaching dry January, to me, dry January was always an excuse to make me feel like I was doing something about my problem, because I knew I had a problem with drugs and alcohol, especially alcohol. Even take the drugs out of the equation, I still had a problem with drinking by itself. I was drinking to excess. I was binge drinking, and I would get myself into trouble while binge drinking. It was just a disaster. I'm lucky I'm even alive. Some of the things that happened when I was drinking, the accidents, broken bones, concussions, just extravagant behavior that was dangerous. I was dangerous when I was drunk. I was a danger to myself and to others around me because drinking changed me into an entirely different person that you wouldn't recognize, that I wouldn't recognize today. I wouldn't recognize myself drunk, being sober. After I broached the threshold, it was like another spirit took over me, and I would do things that were contrary to my sober self. I was not a functioning addict. When I was high, when I was drunk, I did not function to the best of my ability. I let myself go. I let my responsibilities go. I didn't care about myself. I spiraled so far from a conscious lifestyle that I am lucky that I am alive today. And I believe it is by the grace of God that I am alive today. So another reason that dry January is deceptive is that dry January just doesn't work. So I know dry January doesn't work because I've tried dry January 4 years. In my addiction cycle, I had a 6-year cycle of start and stopping, of quitting alcohol, getting sober, relapsing, and then starting sobriety over again, relapsing, starting drinking again, getting drunk. It all just funneled. It all just snowballed into something that was out of my control. And dry January wasn't enough to get a handle on it. I needed significant change. And 30 days is not a significant amount of time to actually enact change in our lives. We need a lifestyle change. If you're contemplating dry January, you should probably be contemplating dry 2025 or the dry rest of your life, because thinking about starting dry January probably is an indication that you probably have something more going on than 1 month of sobriety can fix. So my advice is to take your sobriety seriously, to take your life seriously. And 30 days isn't enough. It's just 30 days is a pebble in the sand compared to a lifetime of sobriety and what you can do and achieve in that lifetime of sobriety, no matter what your age is. The horizon of sobriety is worth taking the journey to. And if you need those 30 days to start your journey, good. Maybe it'll help you. But in my experience, every time I said that I was going to get sober for a month, that dry January would help propel me into a new life, it was always deceptive. It always deceived me into just thinking that I was getting a handle on the situation when really I was just giving myself an excuse to drink for the next 11 months out of the year. And it's not like I tempered my drinking after dry January. I went straight back into my old use habits, my old patterns of drinking. And in fact, my drinking probably got worse. Over time, it got worse. And the danger is that I thought that I was doing something about it. I thought that I was getting better when really I wasn't. I was just lying to myself and making a show that I was doing something and that I wasn't an alcoholic, because look, I'm not an alcoholic. I could abstain from drinking for 30 days, right? So dry January deceives you. I believe dry January is a deception. So don't fall for the deception. Now, if you like what you hear, check out this video for more.